Good morning, and welcome to the World Ender Seasonal VOD Reviews. In this first episode, we obviously do the VOD review for the first game, but also we do the VOD review for... Wait, well, not the VOD review for... We also talk about, like, the lineups, the construction, what the meta was like, and a bunch of other things. So this video will be the longest. Today, I'll talk about my preview experience with the seasonals, all of the decks that I played during this season, and my thoughts on the meta for this season in particular. I'll go over what my lineup options were, the 3 decks I ended up going over and what their deck lists were, which I think are really interesting. All of these decks are different from what you think they will have. Every single deck has at least 3 cards, if not more, that you might go, huh, I didn't expect that to be in the deck. Game 1 review, and then every subsequent video would be a VOD review. Let's start off with my preview experience with seasonals. So this is part of my mega spreadsheet, and my first time I made it to Masters was Targon Part 3, which was the Riv and Zoe Victor expansion. And then from then until Jason Arcane, I only tried to get the Masters every season. I didn't have any idea of getting to seasonals. I didn't think I was a good enough player. First season was Bandle City Part 2. First season I played in, I got 3-1, which, I mean, basically dropped me out. Not technically. Then I got 5-2, which definitely dropped me out. And then 6-3 was my final score. And you'll notice, as time went on, I did Sivir Auction every time. I did Scouts a lot. I did Ecazillion a lot. And I had Red Gwen. This was the season I topped. This was the Curious Journey one where Sundisk was meta, as you can see on the final part where you talk about what the meta was. And that's the one where Prodigy won. The next season I was abroad, so I didn't really play much that season, so I sort of write that one off as not like a season where I really tried too much. Then after that I got my 9-0, which was I think the only time when people cared about me in terms of like competitive LOR. And then we've got these seasons, which was the 6-3 where Annie made it, and I was running Pantheon Fiora with this stuff. And now we've got this season where I ended up going, and I'm going to give you a spoiler, I went 7-2 without seeding. Because it doesn't matter if you guys have spoilers, it doesn't change anything about the VOD review format. I think my lineup was good. I think certain cards could have changed in my lineup, and I think I mean, like, when you see what the deck lists are, some people will make fun of me for my deck lists. Especially one of them in particular. But I don't mind. This is what I decided to pick, and I'm happy with what I brought, and I felt like this was the best thing that I could be bringing at the time based on the logic that we'll be using. So I'll move on next. And I'm going to go through all of the decks that I played this season and a brief overview of them, because I normally only play about 3 or 4 decks a season, and then the lineup is just the 3 or 4 decks that I played that season. But this season I played a bunch of decks because there's a big old story to it. So I shall go to the client, which I hope I'm recording properly. Yeah. And I played a fair few decks. A lot of decks. So I'm going to go over them quickly and explain what happened. The week leading up to the seasonal, I wasn't qualified. I was at like 80 LP or so, and whenever I would climb up, I would always fall back down. What would happen is I'd get to 80 LP by going like, I don't know, 6-1 on something, maybe 5-1. And then I'll do something like go 1-4 after that, and then go the way back down to 0. This happened about 6 or 7 times. The decks that this happened with were Plunder, Kayn Elites, if I can find that one. Gwen Decklist was one of them. Jax Vayne, I'm pretty sure, was one of them. KL Elites was one of them. Pisukaru's Annie, Katarina, Swain. You know, it's Nora Swain, but with Annie and Katarina. And I think Vayne Alawi. Those were the decks that happened with. I would climb up and then fall down. And this happened for about a week. The day, or about a day and a half before the tournament, I decided to pick up the Timelines deck. And the Timelines deck is the one that I eventually got to that rank with. I got 16-4 with Timelines, primarily beating up on like Addy, like Katarina decks, and just being like an overall really strong deck. This Timelines deck is what got me to that rank, and it's why you'll see later on, which is why I brought Timelines. It felt pretty integral to the way that I was playing the season. Going through these decks, Gwen Decklist was a deck that I felt was pretty fun to play, but just doesn't have the innate power that you really want from a deck. I think it's got some good things, but it's worse than like Green Katarina, and it's worse than Plunder, and you're splitting your champions up that you need for Green Katarina and Plunder. So I don't think Gwen Decklist was a particularly strong deck, although it's fun. Cartwheels, I think, is an option, but I think like as the meta changed around, Aatrox Kayn became like the more prominent way of trying to play Aatrox, particularly in the types of things that sort of tried to be. I did fight a Cartwheel deck. By the way, Cartwheels is Vayne Aatrox. Cartwheels is a deck that I did fight once in this tournament, but you could see that like while it did some interesting things, The lack of the freeze spell really makes this deck struggle, and while you can do cool Valor things, if you wanted to beat mid-range, you can just use the freeze spell. Donut Plunder we'll talk about later, because this is the deck I brought to Seasonals. Echo Zillion, I refuse to play Echo Jinx. You'll notice that when I did try and play Echo Jinx once, I gave it a really rather rude name, because I wasn't particularly a fan of it. I tried Echo Zillion, I went like 1 and 2, it didn't work out well. The story behind this Elites deck is that I wanted to try and beat Fuel the Rush with Elites, and my thought was, well, just run Deny. This was a short-sighted plan that did not work out, but this was something I tried for seasonal, was running Elites with Deny, because that was one of the strategies I was thinking about for trying to build a lineup. Fiora Harpy we'll talk about later when we get into the fish fight build. This was a deck that I don't enjoy. I've tried playing Jinx Echo like 3 or 4 times. I'll do 3 games of it. I'll go like 1 and 2 or 0 and 3. It just doesn't feel right to me, and I really prefer the Zillion stuff to the Jinx stuff. It just doesn't work for me. And I know Sleepy Panda, who's a really good player, also had this as a struggle point in their lineup, which they did bring. There's Gwen Decklist. This is Green Katarina. You're going to hear me make a distinction between Green Katarina and Red Gwen. Green Katarina to me is the Foyer deck with Mark of the Isles and Might. Red Gwen is the Double Reckoners and Harrowing. This is important because I brought Red Gwen and not Green Katarina. But this was me testing out Green Katarina, which was... I hate this deck. I really despise Green Katarina. And I know a lot of people have this thought about the meta, where there are lots of cards doing like really powerful combo-y things that's draw contingent. This is your stuff like your Foyer and your Katarinas. This is stuff like your specific Kayn stuff, such as like Furious Wielder and Unforgiving Cold. This is your stuff like your Chrono Breaks and your Hexite Crystals and Echo Jinx and so forth. So I know a lot of people have an issue with this meta in terms of that perspective. Now, I just hate Green Katarina. I really love Red Gwen, and Green Katarina just threw everything I liked about that to the wayside. And every time I would think about playing Green Katarina, I just didn't want to. But it was in here because it was one of the options in theory. James Scouts was me giving a short attempt at Scouts. It didn't really do anything for me. Aphelios Leona, I think, is I was going to say the most fun deck I had in the season. Before Timeless, this was the most fun deck I had this season. But I wasn't particularly good at it. I don't think I'm very good at this sort of, like, SI Targon control stuff. It's probably my favorite region combination, like, generally speaking. I really like playing it. I'm just not very good at it. I didn't end up bringing this, but this was one of the things I was considering, and it's one of the things I tried to claim with consistently. Like, since the start of the season, this was one of the things I was trying to claim with. This is my version of Jax Vayne from, like, my Aegis VOD reviews from ages ago. I think Jax Vayne's really fun, and it was something I was considering. Kaysal, you'll remember from the Sentinels VOD reviews. It was another thing I was considering, and you'll see me explain that more when I was going over my lineup choices. But I think Kaysar was definitely a good option for the seasonal, because it beats 3 of the main decks, right? It beats FTR, it beats Lulu Jinx, and it beats Kayn Aatrox. I think it beats Kayn Aatrox. And so it's like a pretty decent choice to bring into the seasonal. But I didn't go for it, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Kayle Ladder is Elites, Bannerman Elites, but with Kayle. It worked for like 4 games in a row, and then I lost with it because it's Kayle Elites. Keva Jax Vayne is a mix of Keva's version of Jax Vayne and my version of Jax Vayne. For example, my version was running 2 rallies, Keva wasn't running any rallies. It's something I tried out for the tournament, but it didn't end up panning out. Monkeys was me giving Monkeys a shot, thought it might try and beat like Lulu Jinx and some other stuff. It didn't end up happening. Monkeys wasn't the best choice to bring. This deck is a really interesting deck where you're running, and I'll open it up, I think. Where you're running all of this, like, you're still running the Portal Palooza and the Junk Construct stuff, but you're just not running Nora. Now, this might be so you can run Nora in a separate part in your lineup, such with Nora Vygar. But I found this deck lots and lots of fun. I think this deck's got some really interesting play patterns, and it was one of the more fun decks that I played during the season, but it didn't make sense for anything in terms of lineup, and it didn't feel like it was powerful enough for me to consistently bring in. Nora Swain has always had this option of just feeling like a little bit underpowered. Plunder is Plunder. I think Plunder was something that I think a lot of people run because of its 50-50 matchup table. This is me. This is like the one I played the least here, and I may have played 1 game of this. Red Gwen Real and Red Gwen Modern. Red Gwen Real, I think, is my version of Red Gwen from before the most recent expansion, and this is me trying to update this version, but like, I think I took out something, or this might have been on like a Rune Squire or something like ages and ages ago, and this is different. This is the one I brought to Seasonals. Siva Tristana was me trying to see if Siva Tristana could beat Green Katarina. This is something that we tried for a few hours. Not a few hours, maybe like an hour and a half. Because my thinking against Green Katarina was that they don't have fast speed interaction. They don't run Vengeance. They don't run... like, they need to pre-commit something for a Flock. So I thought Siva Tristana actually has a high chance of being something that could work. And I think if I tried this enough, Siva Tristana could make sense. You've got Group Shot and Pokey for the like the mitered units or for killing off like the little 2-1s. And they can't beat a Shell game, they can't beat an Absolver. You sort of do this go wide thing where you can block stuff enough. I think Sivir Tristana had some potential, but this was, I don't know, 12 hours before the seasonal. I couldn't justify trying Sivir Tristana when I had other options available to me after a few hours passed. Timelines I've talked about already. Vayne Alawi, I think, is a pretty decent deck, and Vayne Alawi had a lot of good power against Kayn Aatrox and anything that really struggles against just like being stat checked, right? This is the same thing that's always happened with like Bard Alawi. But Vayne Alawi would have some really powerful turns where you just do a Seize Voice, you attack, and then you Cataclysm, and you just win. This deck started off as a roleplay deck with Eye of God, right? You just do Eye of God and you do a bunch of cool stuff with it. And I think this deck still has some potential. You get to run like a bunch of really interesting one-offs. This is my version of it. I don't know if anyone else is on this. Like Field Promotion just blows out like Aatrox Kayn. Like you just do Field Promotion on Alawi and then you just sort of like win. They can't really do anything about it. You do Eye of God, you can catch Eye of God and stuff, and you give Tough to like the Tentacle and the Tentacle can't die. And against some matchups, they can't deal with Vayne Alawi. The only issue is that I think Vayne Alawi really struggled against stuff like Lily Jinx, and it's going to lose to like random nonsense. And the biggest issue we had is that it lost to Shadow Isles. Because a lot of people, when they hear Alawi, the first thing they're going to think of is Quietus, and there's a good reason for that. I can't beat Quietus with this deck. I beat Annie twice during scrims when he was playing Nora Vygar, because I drew a Seize Voice. But if you don't draw Seize Voice, you literally just cannot kill Nora Vygar as Vayne Alawi. This was me testing out something, we'll talk about this later, and this is me testing out something, we'll talk about this later. So I went through a lot of decks. Now, you're going to notice some exceptions that aren't in this that you think, hey, Spidz, if these are all the decks you tried to climb with for the last week, like over 150 games to try and get from 0 LP to 100 LP, or 150 LP, like I did, I think, 150 games to try and do that. Where's Lily Jinx? Where's Kayn Aatrox? Where's FTR? Where's... I think there's one more deck that was, like, really popular. I don't remember what it was. Where are these decks? And the answer is that I didn't play them. I'm not a big fan of those decks. And so from my perspective, this is the first time I've ever felt where there was a meta that I didn't enjoy, is the one way I might say it. Look, I'll go back to this slide, because I think this slide informs you a lot about the type of player I am. I still consider myself a person that plays this game for fun. And when you look at... Oh, you can't see it here. I'll show you, actually. I'll go to this spreadsheet, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is what I got to Masters with every single season. And what you'll notice is that this deck is never here. Like, Victor Aphelios was not what was popular here. Lulu Zed was not what was popular here. Azir Burn was not what was popular here, blah, 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 blah. I am allergic to playing what is meta, and I think that's... what I've described this as, in my own opinion, is what I call, like, boredom via osmosis. Where if I fight a deck enough, I feel as if I've fought it so much that I just get bored of the concept of this deck, and such that I don't want to play it. So, like, all the decks that I play typically are off-meta. So you'll notice that, like, the closest there was to a meta deck that I played was Sundisk. But this was before the Sundisk buff. This was a week before they buffed Sundisk to make, like, Azir's level up work with, like, landmarks or something. I think, like, maybe Scouts during RA Kennen was pretty meta. But I'm just not... And, like, this was the night before Pandemonium, like, blew up. Like, that was that night. Like, everyone woke up and Pandemonium had won a bunch of times. That was when I was on Powder Pandemonium. I don't enjoy just picking the top deck and winning with it. It's not an enjoyable experience for me. So I hadn't played the Lily Jinx, and I'd seen Lily Jinx enough. I'd been watching Donut and Jansport play Lily Jinx nonstop for, like, months. And by months, I mean, like, a few days, but it felt like months. And same applies for FTR, same applies for the other stuff. So, like, it's an issue that I have. If my goal is to win, then I should solve this, right? But fundamentally, I don't think my goal is to win. My goal is to typically have fun with the game. And since that's the case, I haven't played those decks. But you'll notice that that is definitely like a missing link with my format, right? That I didn't play those decks when in reality, like, I probably really should have played those decks. I think those decks make a lot of sense to have been played. I'm gonna move on to the possible lineups. So there were more than 3 lineups that we tried, but these were the main 3 lineups that came into our brain. The first one's the Timelines lineup. Eniamore talked to Robomaster and was like, hey, if Spidz wants to make a lineup about timelines, Robomaster being a fantastic timelines player, what fits with timelines? And Robomaster responded with stuff like Kaisar, Plunder, Gwen Sedge, Glaive.deck, which is Akshan Sivavarus with the Glaive. green Katarina, red Gwen, Pantheon Varus. The point of this is that it beats Kayn, Aatrox, and FTR. It would ban Lulu Jinx, and the only issue was that all of this logic was before green Katarina. So we weren't sure entirely about how this felt. Now, I beat green Katarina a lot with timelines on ladder, but that's sometimes not the best example of a sufficient like matchup spread, right? Like sometimes you just get lucky on ladder, or the ladder player doesn't mulligan properly, or maybe you like mulligan like interestingly, or something like that. I don't want to like besmirch the good name of ladder players, but it's understandable to think that like it's hard to imagine that green Katarina doesn't beat timelines consistently. But you'll see with my timelines list why I think that it had a decent chance at a green Katarina, and why I think I did well in that matchup. The other idea is Broken Ball's favorite 9 times of a card lineup, 9 times fish fight lineup. So Jack's Vayne was something that I felt really happy about, and when Green Katarina stepped onto the scene, Jack's Vayne was beating Green Katarina a lot of the time. Green Katarina, if you change your thinking a little bit, Green Katarina is just ephemerals. And the way you've always beaten ephemerals is that they would attack you, and then you attack them, and because your units don't die, they do a little bit less damage, but you can hit them multiple times. The other obviously Green Katarina does other stuff like Katarina and Gwen, which aren't ephemerals, but like, you know, replace that with like Zed and replace that with like, I don't know, Dragon Ambush, and it's the same concept, right? Jack's Vayne was absolutely demolishing Katarina, right? Even if they do the Katarina like Mark of the Isles thing, like you get to play units aggressively and just attack them. And so we thought, okay, what other things fit in this idea of this lineup? So the first thing that we tried before we did 9 times fish fight was just other decks that have a similar matchup spread to Jack's Vayne that would do a similar thing. Be an aggressive deck that beats them because they didn't have any blockable units. So this was James's Scouts, and it was also Sivir Tristana. But Sivir Tristana wasn't effectively beating that deck, and James Scouts, I didn't trust it enough because I don't think Scouts is a high enough power level deck. But we thought, okay, what makes this matchup so good is the use of fish fight. So I thought, okay, let's try Fiora Quinn Vayne, but without the Vayne, it's the same Dark and Harp deck, and a weapon version of Sivir Action. The weakest of these decks is obviously Sivir Action. Because like weapons in Sivir Action is fine, but you don't really have the go wide potential that like Jack's Vayne and Fiora Quinn Vayne really do, where they have like a bunch of overstated units on curve. And the way Sivir Action needs to be built like doesn't effectively work the more weapony it gets, especially when Jural was nerfed. Like Jural being nerfed hit fish fight so hard in this sort of like 9 times fish fight lineup. But the idea was that it'd beat Gwen Cat, it'd be okay to Lulu Jinx, and you would ban Kayn Aatrox. But the worry point would be, does this even work? Does this concept actually work? And the final idea was the good decks lineup. The lineup where I just played the good decks. And this is what probably most people played. Green Katarina, Lulu Jinx, Aatrox Kayn, optionally replace one with Plunder, or your Varus Pantheons, or your I don't know, your Glaive decks, your Kaisars. But, like, in general, play these decks, win with these decks. So, going back to front, why didn't I do these? And why did I end up on the timelines lineup? For the good decks lineup, as I've mentioned during the deck apps aspect, I've never played Lulu Jinx, or Kayn Aatrox, or FTR, and I absolutely refuse to play Green Katarina. In addition, if you go back to the previous seasons, I have never done a good decks lineup. I have brought these same decks every time, and none of these decks were the premier deck. Pirates was during Sermon Pirates, and you'll notice I did decently in that seasonal. I did okay. And Pantheon Fiora was very clearly second to Nami Lee, but it was on the rise because it seemed to have a decent matchup into Nami Lee. But every other time, I guess Red Gwen was meta here, and like Red Gwen was kind of meta here. But in my defense, I was playing Red Gwen I think Red Gwen was like discovered a week before this seasonal, right? In the same way that Bartolai was discovered a week before this seasonal. So you could argue Red Gwen, but like Sivir Action is very clearly like not what part of the good decks lineup. And I think that like in general, I've never done this idea of a good decks lineup. So it seemed to me that good decks lineup wasn't gonna be feasible for me. Triple fish fight lineup literally just didn't work. I bait and switched you. Weapon Sivir Action just doesn't do anything. Sivir Action barely does anything anymore, which pains me to my soul. But Sivir Action has like no good matchups right now. And so while Jack's Vayne worked, nothing else worked. So we went with the timelines lineup. I've got experience with timelines on ladder. For the decks that go with timelines, I played Kaisar, unfortunately, for Sentinels, and Plunder as well through Sentinels and ladder. And Red Gwen is a deck that I'm like massively in love with. So, timelines lineup. If these are the 7 decks that work with timelines, we have to whittle them down to 2, right? Because there are 8 decks here, we need 3. got to remove 5. So the first one to go was Pantheon Barrows. I have never played this deck before. Shouldn't really be considered. I'm not even a big fan of this concept. I never really liked Pantheon to begin with, and like Faris doesn't appeal to me too much. The next deck to go was Gwen Sejuani. It's a low power level deck that I think can do decent things, but it's also mutually exclusive to a lot of the choices that seemed appealing to me. And I think Gwen Sejuani fits in the lineup decently, but it wasn't something that I think would have done well enough for me consistently over a good period of time. Now, Rusticles, who went 6-2 before I fought him, was on Gwen Sejuani, so clearly Gwen Sejuani worked for Rusticles. But I don't think Gwen Sejuani was the best option that you could have brought for either your Gwen or your Sejuani. Green Katarina and Kaisar went because I don't like these decks. They're not fun. I'm going to play 9 rares in a tournament. I should at least play decks that I'm sort of okay with when I've got those options available. And finally, Glaive Dot deck, I'm bad at. I'm just bad at Glaive Dot deck. Prodigy has also mentioned that he struggles with Glaive Dot deck, and you would think that that's like a deck that Prodigy would enjoy, right? It's got the yellow region, and it's like mid-rangey. When I learnt that like Prodigy was struggling with Glaive Dot deck, I was like, okay, I don't have to feel bad that I don't understand Glaive Dot deck. It just doesn't work for me. So we ended up with the Timelines Plunder Red Gwen lineup, which I think made sense for me as a player. And like you've obviously seen that you already had like foresight. You knew I was going to end up on Timelines Plunder Red Gwen, and you already know I'm going 7-2. All of this stuff is really easy for you to understand. But for me, I think going through this sequentially made a lot of sense to me. Right, starting with the timelines, saying that this is the nexus of my lineup because I've had success with timelines. How do we build a lineup around this? We first knock off the stuff that we've never played before. We knock off the stuff that we don't like and that we're bad at, and then we end up with the stuff that actually works as best as it can for us. Alright, let's go through the deck lists. So, this is not my timelines list. I stole this from LOR Master Tracker. This was the most winning deck at a certain point. Like, it had something like a 60% win rate. Like, this was the most winning deck. And playing it, I could see why. It felt pretty winning. If we talk about the champions, Victor, Trundle, on. Trundle makes a lot of sense in timelines because we've all seen Trundle timelines. You play, if that's there, you play Ice Pillar after, and that says afterwards, you have the concurrent timelines, you summon a bunch of units for a bunch of tempo, you win the game, right? Victor is a card that says if I'm on the board for 3 turns, I am like very good at threatening a lethal. And the amount of times that Victor plus a weapon would win the game is sort of much larger than you expect. It definitely happens a few times in this seasonal, and if I recorded that ladder winning, it happened a lot during that. You can proc Faded quite easily with this list, as you'll notice with some of the Faded proc cards, and like, you can give Scout to Victor, you can give Overwhelm to Victor, you can give Quick Attack to Victor. All of these things allow Victor's inherent, just like ever-increasing power to force blocks, force interaction for 4 mana, and they have to be scared of Spell Shield every time. I think Victor's really powerful in this deck, and I don't think something like a Vi or a Caitlyn made too much sense as an alternative. And On. So On makes sense when you look at like Favored Artisan, Combat Cook, Piltover, and Castaway. On is a card that does get me a win in this tournament, I'm pretty sure. And On, it's just good. In this deck as a 1-of, I think. What'll happen is that you'll probably have a weapon out by the time you've got an On, because like if you've got a concurrent in your opener, you're gonna look for Castaway and Combat Cook. Castaway is sometimes a keep in certain matchups, and like you've got 5 weapons, you're pretty likely to be able to get one by the time On comes down. And being able to copy something's really good. When you Favored Artisan it just becomes absolutely bonkers. And On forging twice on his attack means that you've got to sort of pre-commit your stuff against On, or else he just can't die. And if you give something like On naturally has tough, I'm pretty sure, but you just give like a quick attack weapon to On, and then like what do you do? What do you do against On? Often, I will admit, it's a Zornite Urchin target, especially against stuff like your green Katarinas and your sort of like aggro decks, like your Leona Katarinas and that sort of stuff. So sometimes it is just like your Zornite Urchin target, but sometimes it works. And sometimes On is just the sort of stat thing you need, especially since we're not on like many Revnas, right? So like you would probably replace this with Revna. A few minutes before the seasonal, we were considering replacing On with Caustic Cask. This is an NEMO special, trying to be better into aggro, right? So now you've got a unit that you can play to beat developed aggro, and then if you've got concurrent timelines, it becomes like a 3/2 because you've got the choice of the pig that kills a friend, aka a cup. So I think that was an option, but I liked On. I didn't want to edit the list because this worked out really successfully for me on ladder, and it only lost, I think, one game in the seasonals. I have to double check this. I haven't gone through them all yet, but I think it's only lost one game through the seasonals. The Forge Chief and Zornate Urchin are the 1-drops. It's really important for hedging your bets against stuff like Lulu Jinx and like Gwen Katarina and like Plunder. Just having like the extra 1-drops is really important. And Forge Chief surprisingly often would give me 2 mana, and the extra mana on a deck like Timelines where you really want to play Timelines early while not like faltering your tempo is actually pretty important. So I think Forge Chief was a really, really good inclusion. And Urchin drawing into Timelines, discarding your favorite Artisan token in some matchups, or discarding your weapons if you've got too many weapons. I think Zoned Urchin just feels really powerful, and it makes sense in Timelines. I think every Timelines test is on this. Favorite Artisan is a card that I think probably is the most out there card in this list, even more than On. Favorite Artisan blocks well into Lulu Jinx, right? Because their whole deck is 2/1s. Favorite Artisan blocks well into Lulu Jinx. It blocks well into your stuff like your aggros, because it blocks 2 things into aggro, sort of like Zillion. But it also gives you that token that gives +1/+1. If you're fighting Quietus decks, you don't need to give +1/+1 to the weapon. You can just give +1/+1 to the unit, like before you equip the weapon or give it to a unit that doesn't have a weapon yet. It allows some of your stuff like your Zonite Urchin, your Ferrous Financier to block Fearsomes, which can be important against like your Phantom Butlers. And Favorite Artisan buffing up something like your Combat Cook weapon to make like a 4/2 quick attack weapon. Just like you just let your units die and they're forced to kill them, and you just block and then you keep applying the weapon, and like they can't get through that. I really think Favorite Artisan felt amazing in this list, and it was one of the cards that felt really, really good. It procs Fated, which has happened to be important in multiple games to keep Victor out of stuff like Flock and out of stuff like certain trades that were about to happen. And I think the flexibility of choosing where your +1/+1 goes. Sure, at focus speed means that if they develop into an attack, you can sometimes just shut down their attack because you can +1/+1 something that they don't want to trade into anymore. Like your Trundle, like your Victor, like your like a buffed up Combat Cook, right? So I really, really like Favorite Artisan in this list. Ferrous Financier is just a decent like PNZ card. You find your Shock Blast, you find like Revitalizing Roar, you find Battle Fury, and it just like wins you the game sometimes. Ferrous Finance is like a pretty powerful card in this sort of deck. Tavern Keeper hedges your bets against stuff like aggro. It's a well-stated unit that blocks Fearsomes and can beat Flux stuff on like Victor. Multiple times Tavern Keeper comes in handy in these games, and so I think Tavern Keeper makes a lot of sense in this deck. I've been talking for like 8 hours because of the VOD reviews. Give me a break. Like give me some leeway if I like start like rambling really awkwardly, because I've been talking for a long time. My voice is already like about to die. Castaway and Combat Cook. Everyone's familiar with the idea of using concurrent timelines and weapons. They're the strongest thing you can do. 1 Fan Club and 1 Revna I think might perk some ears. I think Fan Club and Revna cards that I think having 2 of them is just like superfluous. But like if you play a Revna that's been concurrent timelines, congrats. If you play 2 Revnas, I don't think that's necessary. And if you have 2 Revnas without a concurrent timelines, you're crying. There's one time I play Revna in the tournament without concurrent timelines, and that's fine, but like I don't think you need that many Revnas. You're already high on stats with your favorite Artisan and your Ornn and your Trundle and your concurrent timeline stuff already. And the lineup, the what's it called? The meta that we're in only needs you to favor big stats against something like a Leona deck or a Aatrox deck. Those are the only ones where the specificities can matter to the point where you really need like multiple Revnas or something, right? Like to include your win condition that way. I think Fan Club President's fine as a one of. It gets you awkward things and they need to be concerned about it, and it's the only really like good alternative 5-drop in the deck, and sometimes that's just what you need. I think Fan Club President's a fine card. I really like these as one-ups. I think any more is superfluous, and I think any less is you're missing out on some of the power that you can get from this deck. 2 At That Stairs, 2 Buried in Ice. I think 2/2 might be the common split for this. I'm not so sure because this is the only timeless list I've looked at in a long time. But I think If That Stairs Buried in Ice is a combo we're all very familiar with. I do the damage from If That Stairs quite often in the lineups that we'll see, because it kills stuff like Lulu Jinx if they're forced to develop into your turn 8. There's one matchup where I have Dreadwave from Ice Pillar, and then I do If That Stairs to deal 6 to everything. That was a really interesting game. But I think If That Stairs Buried in Ice is pretty obvious. Finally, the spells. Concurrent timelines, we can just ignore that. It's a timelines deck. 2 Mystic, 1 Thermo is good for Green Katarina. It's good for Lulu Jinx. It's good for any sort of aggro deck. I think these are fine ratios. I think you could upgrade it to 2 Thermos or a 3rd Mystic. I think that can make sense. A Brittle Steel could arguably make sense as well. But like Mystic Shotting Katarina such that they need to like bank mana for Katarina on turn 3 for green Katarina, I think is really important. Mystic Shot allows us to deal with like aggro stuff quite easily, and I think it's just like a good card overall. Three Sisters and Harsh Winds are the freeze spells, and these are really important against green Katarina. What'll happen typically is that because they're ephemerals, they will attack you, you take the damage, you attack them. Blah, blah, blah. This happens a lot. Their final attack will probably lethal you before your final attack because their strength is higher. And the way you beat that idea is by Harsh Winding them on that attack. Harsh Winds deals with Katarina, Harsh Winds deals with Gwen, and Harsh Winds deals with post-might stuff, right? So you block something, you chump it, and then they do it, and then you might, and then they're dead. Harsh Winds and Three Sisters really came in handy a lot, and I think these ratios are perfect. I think you could upgrade you could upgrade them maybe once, but I've loved this deck. I think this deck felt really, really good, and there's a reason that it went like 16-4 and then undefeated -1 in the tournament, I think. I think Timelines is just absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really glad that I brought it. How long did I talk about Timelines for? Like 10 minutes? What the fuck is wrong with me? My voice is not... It's not the business today. Red Gwen. So this is Red Gwen. This isn't Green Katarina. This is just Red Gwen. I've talked about why I just don't like Green Katarina, and comfort is important, right? And I've played a lot of Red Gwen in my time. I think Red Gwen's lots and lots of fun. I think that my list is okay. I think in retrospect with this list, I think I would have added another Quietus. This is a mix of my list and Keva's list. So Keva likes Mark of the Isles. I'd never played Mark of the Isles before today in Red Gwen. But I'm a big fan of Vengeance. I've always ran Vengeance in Red Gwen for like the past, like, I don't know, 4 months. I really like Vengeance in Red Gwen. I think my old Red Gwen was like no Pigeon, and obviously no Prodigy at the time. And then you would have like +1 Flock, +1 Glimpse, +1 Vial, +1 Quietus. I think I really like those ratios, and I miss the 3 Quietus, and there's a matchup here where I really needed that Quietus, and I just didn't have it. So I think, in retrospect, I would have liked to go -1 Pigeon, +1 Quietus. But besides that, this deck does what Red Gwen has always done, in a really powerful way. It's less like intrinsic power than Green Katarina, but I think like my experience on this deck gave me what I needed for the lineup, and I think Fallen Reckoner is still decent against stuff like Aatrox Kayn. In like setting up your harrowing lethals. As long as you get harrowing against Aatrox Kayn, and you've had like a Reckoner die, you win. They can't deal with that. That's not impossible for them to deal with, basically. It just does all the stuff that Red Gwen's used to. I don't think I need to talk it too much. Just keep in mind that like I'm not playing Green Katarina, and I think that is important to know. Finally, Plunder. This is the Plunder list. It is not a Plunder list I'm used to. I'm used to 2 Fractures, 3 Spirits, no Bjerg, 1 less Sap Spray Fin. And this one's on 3 Sap Spray Fin, a Bjerg, 2 Spirits, and 2 Battle Fury. So let's talk about Battle Fury. Battle Fury is a card that Donut came up with like a day before the seasonal. And he sold me on it the day of the seasonal, a few hours. I hadn't even played with Battle Fury the hour before the seasonal. Donut tells me go on Battle Fury, I go on Battle Fury. So what's the logic behind Battle Fury? If you remember Siva Tristana, my thinking was that for Siva Tristana, enemies can't deal with a Battle Fury in time. They don't run Vengeance, they have to like pre-commit a Flock or something, but that doesn't even work, like, because then Battle Fury buffs it by 3. And what Battle Fury does is enemies are forced to do Harsh Winds, they're forced to do Cultist Harsh Winds, they're forced to do Vengeance on your Gangplank and Sejuani, and then you respond with a Battle Fury to beat the freezers, or you Battle Fury some dinky unit, and that hits the Nexus. Battle Fury, I think, makes a lot of sense in this, and you'll see Battle Fury 2 out of the 3 games that I draw it absolutely just like annihilates the opponent. Donut had a lot more success with Battle Fury than I did because he drew it more often. And he -1 on Spirits. Now, the game that I lost, I think I would have had, if I had Spirits instead of my 2 Battle Furies in hand, I may have won that game. So be wary, maybe cut something else for Battle Fury, but I think Battle Fury is a very, very good card that made a lot of sense in this deck, in the things that we're trying to deal with, and the way that the deck ended up playing out. I'm really happy with the Battle Fury. Everything else is pretty stock standard Plunder. Trigger your Plunder, do the Plunder stuff, plunder your way to victory, your Plunder. I'm going to have to take a break from the recording, but those were my laps. I think as a final tally on all of this, going 7-2 is something that I'm decently proud of. I think going 7-2 is perfectly fine. As spoilers, I knocked out 2 of the people that had 7 and 2 seeding. So I knocked out Lazy Guga and I knocked out Rusticles, who I felt really bad about the Rusticles one. You'll see that I just feel awful about the Rusticles one in the moment. My hope was that I could get Fake Hero in. He was at 50 and was 7-2, but unfortunately Fake Hero didn't make it. He's waitlisted. The last thing I want to mention is that one thing I note about the VOD reviews is that, like, not every game is interesting, right? I recognize that not every game is interesting. I'm still going to upload every game, but what I'm going to do is that for the videos that are more interesting than others, I'm going to put a star in the video title for the games that are more interesting, and then a star around the games that I think are the most interesting, where, like, an interesting play happens that I think is worth watching. Hopefully that makes it so that you only watch the... Like, if you only care about, like, interesting matchups, I think that, like, lets you achieve that, but it also lets me upload everything that I can in case people want to watch their games back, or whether you're, like, you want to pick up Plunder and you don't know what to do in this matchup, and I do it in a certain game that I don't think is interesting but still worth watching. Or maybe just, like, I don't know, you keep it on in the background and, like, more stuff in the background's fine. So I'll try and do that. I'll see how that feels. Sleepy Panda made a good point that, like, by the time the final episode is uploaded, we're already in the new season. Like, who will care about the Rusticles game, which was the final one, by the time the new season's out? I don't know what to do with that. Maybe I'll upload 2 of these a day. But I don't know. I don't know how to deal with this. It's cognitive dissonance. Hopefully the new type of tournament makes it so that there is a reason to watch my stuff. Basically. Because Sleepy Panda has a good point. There's no reason to watch this stuff, and I noted that in my feedback video. Right? There's no reason to watch LOR content after a patch, right? Like pre-patch stuff, there's basically no reason to anymore. But okay, that's everything I wanted to talk about regarding the setup. We'll go over the first game, and then in future videos we'll go over everything. The last thing I want to mention, sorry, it's one more thing. Game 4 was a forfeit. I didn't play a Game 4. If there's one less video in the playlist, that's why. Okay. I'm going to take a break, but future Spidz is going to go through Game 1 with you. I hope her voice is better by then. Alright, recording started. As I've hopefully explained in my 50-minute intro, I don't know the result of this tournament, but you guys do. So it's a very fascinating position I've put myself in. Where I don't know if, like, this lineup went, like, 5-4, or I don't know, 1-8. Or if it went 9-0. Like, I've got no clue what to say about this lineup. It's very weird. But as always, I'm sweaty. Mum's spaghetti. I've got almonds in my pants already. I don't know who this is. Kayn Trucks Nora Swain this. Wow. I don't know what to ban. I don't know what to ban. Okay, let's get up the deck lists. Kayn Trucks. What I always do is I always get the snipping tool out, which I've for some reason closed. And then I snip this, and then I put it in a paint document. I used to do it in old paint, but they changed paint. My man's on 3 Aatrox, 2 Kayn, which is fine. Okay. Line that up. Perfect. Beautiful. He's on the Darken Draven, aka the Draken fan. Hold on. Snip me up. Interesting. This is on Signpost. I don't know what to ban. I'm thinking that Nora Swain might beat all of my stat nonsense on the timelines. But I might be able to aggro it with the red Gwen and the Plunder. My instinct is Nora Swain, but simultaneously I know most people don't respect Nora Swain as a deck. Which is part of the reason why I'm not inherently killing Nora Swain. Okay, and then this. And I think this deck is really strong, but I'm shit at piloting it, so I don't know how to equate its strength. 1 Aatrox. Any hutch? No hutch. Okay, then what I do is I copy this image, typically, and put it in a Discord server that only, like, I am in, basically. And then I open that up on a Google Chrome document. Like, you know, Google Chrome explodes something inside. Minimap. Scorched Earth. It's one of these two, right? Like, in theory, my decks are supposed to beat Kayn Aatrox. Whether that'll happen is uncertain. What I could do is I could get up the Maru ban helper. Mastering Runeterra, ban helper. Because normally I have this up. It's starting to run out of time quite badly. Okay. Gangplank Sejuani. Ah, but when I put red in Red Gwen, it's gonna not do Red Gwen, it's gonna do Green Katarina. Uh-oh. And I don't even know if they'll have, like, my timelines list. Maybe I can't rely on this thing all of a sudden. Leona Aphelios. I think I'm banning Nora Swain. If I'm basing it off the ban helper, Nora Swain is the worst for me. So I think I'm banning Nora Swain fighting Aphelios Leona. So what it says, I don't know if maybe I'll copy this actually and then put it in the video if I remember. But basically it says that like Gangplank is 10% better into Aphelios. Gangplank is Katarina's 4% better into Aphelios and Trundle's 10% better into Aphelios. So I think it's I think I'm banning Nora Swain. They're gonna ban Plunder because it's the most real deck of my decks, I think. It's been a long time since it's been seasonal time. Last seasonal was fucking, what's it called? You know the thing? Was Worlds, basically. Okay, I'm recording. They banned timelines. Interesting. I can see a world where they think they're anti-Plunder. Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, I mean, if I look at their side of the ban helper, they're supposed to ban timelines. Fair call. Okay. Let's start with Plunder, I guess. With this list I've played only like a few games of, because I'm not on Fracture anymore and I've never played with Bjerg, like in this meta. Alright, open up the deck lists, see what's happening. Open in browser, zoom in. Aphelios Leona. Alright, Aphelios Leona. Looks like the list I was also on. So I presume I want to turbo out my champions and then just like, I hope they don't have Sunburst Vengeance. That's my instinct. So I think it might be something like this. I don't know if I should be keeping GP. I do think it's turbo out champion time, but it also might be like stat spam time. This must be a matchup where where triple spirits make sense. Damn donut not liking spirits. I should just be on triple spirits. There's the Battle Fury, which, I mean, they have to Vengeance, right? The only way they can beat Battle Fury is Vengeance. They can Atro Battle Fury, I guess. Very good. We're very lucky they didn't have one of their, like, 6 1-drops. That's very lucky for us. Now, they could Vile Feast, and then that stops both of my Shell Shockers. Yuck. Okay. This is definitely, like, a yuck moment. I am gonna proc Plunder. But I'm all of a sudden super unhappy. Pass. Alright. Merchant? Okay. We're gonna attack. They're gonna Vile Feast. I'm gonna have to Warning Shot Merchant. That's what's gonna happen here. Block. Vile. Warning Shot Merchant. Yep. I don't want to pre-commit it because then they're gonna play Sun Guardian and the attack is like a lot worse. So Warning Shot. Merchant. Spell much. Dayman. I can play Dayman on 4, which is nice. He's a big unit. Like, they're not gonna be able to block him when I attack on turn 5. So that's nice. Yeah, they might, like, Sunburst him, but maybe I shouldn't have done it then if I'm scared of Sunburst. But I don't know, like, if they're Sunbursting this, they're not Sunbursting Gangplank or something later on. It's tough. I don't think this is, like, an easy position to be in. I don't think this was very good. Like, yeah. It's fine, I just, like, I don't think, like, I'm scared of that idea too much. They could do Soldier Aphelios here. Sunburst. Okay. Fair call. What am I doing in response? I don't know. Because I have to open to beat Leona, but if they Leona, like, ouch. Okay. I guess I'm Battle Furying them. Am I playing Gangplank, they play Leona, and then like I try and Battle Fury them next turn? And just hope that they don't have Vengeance? Is this my win con? Because that doesn't feel great, but I don't have Plunder procs because I'm on 1 less Spirits and I'm on no Fractures. Like, if this was Spirit, if these were Spirits and Fracture, I would be in a great position here. This last-minute decision is probably going to cost me, isn't it? GP loses to Sunburst, but how do I win? I could do Stellarcorn. And then if they Leona, I guess I pass, and then I do Gangplank into Battle Fury turn, then Suffer? Or do I just do Gangplank? Like, no matter what I do, I'm dying to Vengeance, right? At least if I do Gangplank now, it does stuff. Like, things happen. The world moves a little. But it's not like I'm happy about this. I could have opened and then, like, I don't know, if they Avalanche, I do the thing. Do they do Dayman? I pass. We are gonna just go for the Battle Fury and hope that they don't have stuff. Nebulous things. Vengeance, I guess. I mean, they would have Vengeance, right? Vengeance is like a premium card for their deck. If I make it rain, I can't Battle Fury Leona. But that's fine, I probably want a Stellarcorn to keep a Gangplank around. So I'll do that, I'll Stellarcorn to keep Gangplank around. It's a temporary buff, I always forget that this is a temporary buff. But sure. And then we'll attack and we might Battle Fury sideways. If that makes sense, like, do a lateral Battle Fury instead of a prominent Battle Fury. They're smacking me, which is an understandable position to be in from their perspective. I don't know why you would attack with Spiderling if you're doing it this way. We're gonna do this just to get the extra damage off from the thing. Perfect targets, I think. Yeah. If I get a warning shot, this could start being a really good hand. I'm able to play Jagged Butcher. How much mana do I have next turn? I've got 10. So if I've got Make It Rain, Jagged Butcher might be wrong. I mean, no, they'll stun Gangplank at open, so, like, I need Warning Shot or else I'm just, like, open attacking without the Gangplank stuff. Spirits. I think the best play is to attack, do a Battle Fury, and try and win through that sort of plan. I think that's my most reliable form of victory. Like, the alternative line is Spirits and then do double Battle Fury in future turns, but I'm scared I'm gonna be, like, out. Like, I don't know, I'll be Winding Lighted or something. And this does give me a win con lethal. I mean, they can block this, and then they're only down to 2. But it kills their units kind of hard. I'm not happy about this position. I think this is my best play. My hope is that they just pre-commit Vengeance. But I don't know, that seems unlikely to me. Oh look, they didn't do it. Who could have thought? Do we let this go and then play Spirits? Or do we just play Battle Fury? I'm inclined to say we play Battle Fury. And then, like, that way we've got, like, double ping lethals. Yeah, I think that's unfortunately the correct choice. So they can Vengeance the 10-6, alright? Yeah, there's Vengeance on the 10-6. I'm very much losing this game. I mean, I think they're trying to target Plunder with their lineup, is my guess. So if I had Fracture, I would have been able to flip Gangplank so much quicker. I should have probably just played my list. I think Donut baited me, unfortunately. Is my game 1 analysis. I mean, I'm saying he's baited me. He's probably rewatching this and like, Spidz, you're mulligan. Why? Why did you keep Shell Shocker? Why did you keep Gangplank? These were not the cards to be keeping. But I don't know that. So they're going to develop a Solari unit into Winding Light, and I'm going to lose the video game. Is what I expect here. Yeah, this is the game. This is one of the games of all time. Because I get stunned out here, and then they just play another unit. It stuns everything. This is already 9 damage. What's it called? 11 damage. Like, I'm just dead, right? I guess I'm supposed to pass and hope for a Sejuani, because if I develop, I want to be able to block. I think passing's correct here. I lose to Pale Cascade, but we know they've got a Solari unit. I'd rather they develop that and then I have a blocker. I think passing here is right, but I'm not winning. Like, I'm threatening I have Nargagi Boreas as well, kind of, sort of, so they feel like they need to develop. No, okay, well, they're just gonna... Like, I think I was correct in passing here, even though it's like, I'm losing if I pass. But I think I'm more losing if I don't pass. I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. Fine. If these weren't Battle Furies, I'd be pogging. So, thanks, Dana. Okay. So, a few things happened that game that I think are sort of interesting. I think, unfortunately, it was sort of just draw dependent. They had Sunburst and Vengeance. That just destroys my deck, right? I've got 2 premium Vengeance targets in the Gangplank and the Sejuani. Now, they end up using one of those against Solari, like Dayman. But, like, in general, like, my deck has 2 main win conditions. It's leveling champions and winning through champions. If I'm the aggressor, right, my win conditions are going through the champions, winning via having champions flip and being aggressive, or by doing, like, Unleashed Spirit stuff. I simply didn't have the Unleashed Spirits hand. I think I should have mulliganed for that hand, though. So I think the first misplay was this mulligan. I think I should have gotten rid of Warning Shot, I should have gotten rid of Gangplank, and just looked hard for Mirai Warden, Butcher, Unleashed Spirits, and these sorts of things. Now, the 2 main win conditions are level champions or Unleashed. The side win conditions for my version of the deck are obviously Battle Fury and Sejuani Lock, right? Like, those are the side win conditions that don't actually win the game, but they sort of, like, force the opponent to let you win the game eventually, in an awkward sense. But I think mulligan was definitely wrong. And this is where I've not done this matchup before. I don't think I've ever done this matchup before, so I didn't know what I was going for. However, I don't think many misplays occur. I think I just played generally fine. I think the first awkward play was playing Gangplank here. I think playing Gangplank here is an unfortunate necessity. I don't see a way that I get around it. Now, I guess I should have thought ahead of time that they're going to play one of their 5-drop Sun units, whether that's Leona or whether that's Dayman. But my alternative line is like Stellacorn and Butcher. That isn't good for me either. An alternative line is to open and then do Gangplank afterwards, and that way I kill the Spiderling. But I don't know. I think, like, because I'm in this position where it's turn 5, I don't have any units on field, and the Nexus is at 17, I've already lost the game by now. And I've lost the game by now because I mulliganed incorrectly. And I think that's the way I have to look at this game, that the mulligan was so inherently wrong in its displacement that I wasn't able to justify a win through that. If their hand was going to be how their hand was, which was with a Vengeance, which was with 2 Daymen, a Leona, and that Sunburst, right? I think the last play that I really want to highlight is... Okay, first I want to quickly talk about this. I think this is necessary. If they've got Vengeance, I lose. Like, I'm never getting a Battle Fury in without committing it here, if that makes sense. Like, this is the best time I have to commit a Battle Fury. They're never going to give me a position where I can commit Battle Fury freely from here on out because they've already won the board. So I'm never, like, Battle Furying, surprise, I got you, because they never need to be put... They never need to put me... They never need to let themselves be in that position. It's the best way of phrasing that, right? Like, they will always have the availability of killing my Battle Fury because they've already won on board. So I think Battle Fury here was correct in saying if they've got Vengeance, they've got Vengeance. I can't deal with this. And if they don't have Vengeance, I have a chance of winning. And that's what I have to play for, right? If I'm losing to Vengeance no matter what, then I may as well just play my Battle Fury and at least have my chance of winning. So I think this Battle Fury was correct. The final play I want to talk about is this pass with the 2/2. I hope I've never really done a play like this before, but I hope that people agree with me because I've never done anything like this before, and I think it's really interesting that if I play the 2/2, I think I'm more likely to lose because I think it's more likely that they've got a Daybreak unit that they want to play before I play the 2/2 than not have a Daybreak unit at all, right? Those are the two polar opposites, right? If they don't have a Daybreak unit somehow, then playing the 2/2 is correct. But if they do have a Daybreak unit, I think it is more likely that they would want to play that to play around things like Harsh Winds than it's worth it for me to develop the 2/2. Now, obviously, they have Pale Cascade here, which is a guaranteed lethal. But so would stuff like Atrocity be a guaranteed lethal, right? But I think I'd still rather just not play anything and play the 2/2 after they play, like, I don't know, a Solari Shieldbearer or something that they got off the Dayman. I think I'm correct in my play, and I'm really, really curious to see if other people think that I am correct in this play, because I've never done anything like this before, and I think it's a really interesting position that I was put in. I will let you watch the next two games now. Goodbye from the future. Let's run back Plunder. It doesn't really matter, right? Okay. They're on Keeper of the Box, they're on Expanse's Protection, they're on Furies Wielder, they're on Unforgiving Gold. Telling me they're on all the stuff they're always on. I think we should be keeping Sejuani. I think we're aiming to Sejuani lock them a little bit. I don't know if Make It Rain's a keep, just because they don't have any things we want to ping. Zap Sprayfin could have been a keep. They can't actually deal with Zap Sprayfin very well at all. Yeah, I think I should keep Zap Sprayfin. Like, they don't deal with elusives, I don't think. We'll open with our Shell Shocker. Just so that they don't, like, equip Darken Spear and then my Shell Shockers don't do any damage. Mirai Warden changes things. I shall decide to go wide all of a sudden. Yeah, so even if they play a unit or play a spear, this is more worth it to me. Okay. I could have actually not attacked with Saboteur to get that guaranteed ping later on. That's an interesting line with this, with what I got. Huh. Yeah, it's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be Shell Shocker into I am not gonna get Boros into Spirits Unleashed, I think. Especially with Butcher. Okay. Shell Shocker, Butcher, I hit them for a little Unleashed. They'll probably equip the Bloodletters just to threaten damage. Perfectly understandable. I'm gonna take it. I'm the aggro deck, I think, in this position. Yeah, take it. I push in my 6 damage. But 9, oh, 8 damage because I've not get Boros. And then Will Spirits. Hello? Thanks. Go. Make It Rain, Warning Shot. Okay, so I have a lot of Sejuani procs. I'm only at 1 at the moment, but I do have them. If I'm at 1, that means this is 4 is 2, 5 is 3, 6 is 4. It'll be flipped on turn 7. Is the theory. They might equip Shadowblade Fanatic here. Worthy of Nagake Boros. Ooh! Okay, so they're gonna do something like Kayn, right? Yep. Absolutely understandable. Here are the Unleashed Spirits. And funnily enough, if we Make It Rain on the stack, Kayn might not flip. Like, they would need to Momentous to keep Kayn around. They didn't keep the 3-1 alive, which is understandable. I think that's the right play from their perspective. I mean, we can also do Sejuani next turn. I think it actually might be Make It Rain, because it also pings off the 2-1, right? So no matter what, I'm getting a... I might just be going for lethal, like, ignoring Sejuani, like, I'm just, like, attacking for lethal. Okay, well, that doesn't kill the 2-1, unfortunately. They'll Momentous here. Yeah, they'll Momentous here. Absolutely. I guess I was like overly hoping that it would kill Buru Cultist here in this position. I'm gonna freeze, I think, Buru Cultist. And then try and like challenge Buru Cultist for lethal. Because if they play Aatrox, I don't care. They'd have to do like Momentous Furious Wielder for me to care. So I think this is the line. Aatrox. Okay, well, is this not lethal? I deal like 2 damage through Go Wide. I deal +1 damage through Go Wide. I could just do this and force them to Momentous Choice. Like, if they don't Momentous Choice, I've got lethal, right? I think this is better, right? Because if they do have Momentous Choice, I'm losing all my units for no reason. Like, I get to push... Well, I get to push 2 damage because they heal from Aatrox, right? So I get to push 1 damage. 1 damage is not a relevant mana point. I mean, it is with Parley, but, like... It is with Parley, but they're going to open attack before I can Parley, right? So I think it's just this. Okay, that's lethal. It's not much of a warning, is it? Alright, Red Gwen versus this deck. Welcome back. That was a pretty short game. So I want to talk about what actually went well in this game rather than the misplays that I made. Because I think what went well in this game is important to note when you're playing this deck. And like, one thing that I don't like about my format is that I think I focus too much on what went wrong and not as much as on what went right and like what sort of decisions actually helped go for the game plans that we needed to go for. The first thing that we did was mulligan away a few things. We go back. Okay. We got rid of Zap's Brayfin and Make It Rain. Now, Make It Rain we got rid of because we didn't want to... There's nothing that's an X1 in their deck. Their deck just doesn't run any X1s. They've got Foreskin or Forsaken Broccoli or whatever you want to call it. But that's not like a prominent enough target for you to worry about, right? Like, none of their X1s matter to them in the same sense that Lulu Jinx is built entirely off X1s, right? Like, Green Katarina is entirely built off X1s. So, like, the idea of keeping Make It Rain doesn't make too much sense. Keeping Sejuani is interesting. It sort of prizes you into the Sejuani lock game plan or the Challenger Overwhelm hit them down game plan. I think keeping Sejuani is fine because there are going to be matchups where you need your Sejuani and you just don't have it. And this is going to be one of them where I think Sejuani is quite important. But Zap's Brayfin's an interesting one. Zap's Brayfin has some absolutely phenomenal attributes when it comes to stuff like dealing 2 or 3 elusive damage consistently against a deck that cannot deal with it without freezes or Furious Wielder. And a freeze or a Furious Wielder that hits Zap's Brayfin is a freeze or a Furious Wielder that's not hitting Gangplank or Sejuani. Now, keeping Zap's Brayfin, I'm not sure about because I do think that going for Mirai Warden or going for Unleashed Spirits is the better play here. And in this matchup, you get to do a lot of the things that Plunder wants to do quite effectively, right? Like, this is one of the easiest matchups for Plunder to do their own Plunder thing without much worry about what the opponent is going to do, absent of harsh winds. So going for your Unleashed Go Wide, I'm not Keke Boros, Mirai Warden, Shell Shock, and nonsense is pretty powerful. And then transitioning that into your Champion's game plan is also pretty powerful. Just because they're a big Demacia deck that doesn't get to run many strike spells. Like, their cheapest strike spell is Aatrox spell and, like, Kayn spell, right? I think that we played this pretty well. I think everything that we did was pretty okay. I don't think we actually made any misplays, as far as I can tell. But, like, we get to just develop the board, go wide, and I don't think this is a misplay. I think, like, attacking with this is fine. They're forced to block like this. We get to push 2 extra damage as time goes on, and that's perfect, right? Like, I think that's fine. I'm really happy with just, like, aggressing them down. I really like the general mindset that I have with Unleashed Spirits, which is that we don't want to play Unleashed Spirits, like, ASAP when you need to be, like, a beating down. I think you want to play the only time you want to play Unleashed Spirits ASAP is if you're trying to beat certain types of control in the numbers that they deal to your units. So in a future game, I'm going to be fighting Nora Swain, and they've got a bunch of, like, single number pings. And so all of this gets saved from Make It Rain by doing this on turn 3. But against something like Z 1005's deck, we want to play this when it gives us the highest amount of, like, tempo advantage. And by that I mean, like, increasing the amount of stats on our board enough such that our attacks, every single time we attack, are the strongest attack they can be being considerate of future attacks and being considerate of not losing your entire board, right? Like keeping your general LOR skills in your brain about keeping your board maintained, making sure you're pressuring enough, making sure you're not throwing away your units incessantly. You want to be viewing like your only spirits not as some sort of like, I want to get as much value out of this by playing it as early as possible. You want to be thinking of it as, this is a card that's like a weird, awkward for Demacia that can ping them off sometimes and helps me go wide and cost one less, right? And so I really like in this matchup playing this as that aggressive tool, not doing it on this turn, doing it on the next turn, because we're pushing 8 damage here that they cannot deal with, right? They have the Furious Wielder to deal with this, and Furious Wielder is awful for them here. And then we get to do this on their turn, and then all of these become 3 strength all of a sudden, right? If we had done this one turn earlier, there would have been more develop. Our attacks may have like traded into this, but we're going to kill this anyway. Like making this 3 strength and making this have 1 HP is the exact same sentence. Except this way we get to push damage on quicker. And I think like everything else went perfectly. I think using Sejuani as a way to go for lethal is really powerful here. It doesn't lose to very much in this position right now, because they would have to either harsh winds, which means they're not developing their board and we're still able to attack them quite readily, right? So they harsh winds, it freezes Sejuani and something, we're still going wide a fair bit, we're pulling this to the side, we're pushing the 6 damage, we're winning the game. They would have to be doing something else for their turn to make sense, and we've also got this 3 burn in hand. So harsh winds isn't a concern, right? Simultaneously, if they develop something like an Aatrox, we've got the win with the Sejuani, right? So I think Sejuani pulling this was correct. I think this Make It Rain was arguable. I think that it was probably wrong. I don't think this Make It Rain was the correct play, but like this may be my only misplay besides like an arguable change in Mulligan. I think this Make It Rain was like overzealous and unnecessary. It did get momentous choice out of them, but like I think we could have done Make It Rain in other positions. I'm not so sure that this Make It Rain was the best one. But it was also like fine. I don't think this Make It Rain is good or bad. I don't think it's increasing my percentages that much or decreasing my percentages that much. Getting momentous choice out of them is fine, but like I think we were going to be winning this game anyway. No, getting momentous choice out is important. If I'm thinking ahead, I'm thinking that I want to do Sejuani on this, and such getting momentous choice is important. And I really do like my logic of not attacking with everything. Because if they've got momentous choice, I'm losing my units, leveling their Kayn, and leveling their Aatrox up for no reason. And because they can open attack with Aatrox and open attack with Ras, I'm not going to be able to comfortably parlay in time. So I really, really, really like my attack only with the Sejuani here. Because even if they play momentous choice, we can still out the game in that way they're not healing with Ras or Aatrox as much, and we can push in our damages later with stuff like the parlay maybe on this unit, and then you do the I'm like okay Boris and try and go wide on the tech thereafter. And we probably have a Sejuani flipped by that point, which means we can deal with the lifesteal stuff. A lot of talking here, but I think this game was played pretty cleanly. I'm really happy with how this game went, and while I think we definitely had a lot of a high roll and they didn't draw what they needed to draw, like getting the Bloodletters was worse than them getting like the Darkened Spear or something else that would have protected their 2/2 that they so thoroughly needed to keep around to block our stuff like repeatedly. Right? If their best weapon was something that was going to trade into a 1 strength unit, it just didn't accomplish anything for them. I think we did a really good job. I think we played exactly how I needed to. And I know it's only like a 7-turn game. Like the amount of options I had weren't that high. Like if Z1005 was like deep blue and Spidz was like 20 monkeys at typewriters, I'm sure it wouldn't take that many monkeys to get to the lines that I made. Like it's just like there's not that many decisions to be made. But simultaneously, it feels nice to see a game that you've played well and you don't feel as if you made too many misplays in. But that's my review of that game, and I'll let you watch the final game. I think we've done this once. It's like harrowing. You just win with harrowing, is my understanding. Like you pressure them, they have awkward interaction, you get them down to a point where harrowing is lethal, and you're just harrowing them to death. Because they don't run anti-harrowing technology. Like, the best thing they can do against harrowing is stuff like Furious Wielder and Unforgiving Cult, but that's like, they need to do that to stay alive during the mid and early game as well. So I think we'll just do something like this. They can't really block Phantom Butler without like a weapon on something. But they can also not, I mean, they can also block Redeem Prodigy with a weapon on something as well. I mean, I do have the attack token on too, never mind, that doesn't work. Cool, so I'll just play Phantom Butler and open. Never mind, they played Broccoli. I guess I'm doing Prodigy and opening. Oh, I can't. That's mana. Right, the Spidz. I think it's Butler. Because at the very least, Butler blocks better. Like, if I'm not attacking here because of, like, a Darkened Spear, I want Butler on my side. Yeah, I guess I'm not attacking here. Okay. I can't believe they played Badger Bear on turn 2, and it also does Omen Hawk. Like, what is this nonsense? Fanatic. Okay. Well, we can kill Forsaken Bakai with this thing. Vile Feast, play Gwen. See what happens. Yeah. I think we do this. I think we play Gwen. They can't kill Gwen in any way, shape, or form without, like, Momentous stuff, right? Like, it would be Shadow Fiend Momentous. Which is actually, like, kind of doable, I guess, for them. I got second Gwen, so, like, I guess I'm okay with it all of a sudden. We won't attack with Spiderling, it'll just be Redeemed Prodigy plus this. That way it trades into Shadowblade Fanatic, I think. They should play Shadow Fiend here, I think. Darkened Spear. Okay, that also kills Gwen with Momentous. But I am going to attack with the Spiderling all of a sudden. Because I'm pushing like 6 damage here, even if they do the Momentous play. And I've got second Gwen, and that's like my best development next turn as well. So I'm fine with it. Or they could do this, and I keep Gwen. Nah, look, I think they should do Momentous here. If I had opened, I could have done a Glimpse Beyond. Oh! Whoa, okay. They're just blocking maximum. They don't run things. They're double Runeterran friends. Okay, so that's drawn Kayn. I guess they're making it smaller for Kayn. But Brother and Aurelian, I'm a quieter deck. Like, I'm not super sold by that play. Because I think this is like a fantastic quietus for me. I think I'm going to glimpse the 1/1. If they attack like this, I could replay Gwen instead. Okay. We'll glimpse the 1/1 just to get some card draw. And then we'll open, same logic, Prodigy, then Gwen. Yeah, I think we could also kill Keeper of the Box and then just open. The only reason not to do that's Katarina. I could develop Katarina and just see what happens. I think that's a better play. Because they need to hold up strike spells or freezes, and then I can, like, ping off Shadowblade Fanatic. And we can decide what happens with Quietus afterwards. Now, the only issue with this is that if they don't slam Aatrox, then I might not be killing Keeper of the Box here. Like, they can equip Keeper of the Box with something. Holy shit, if I did Quietus into Reckoner, that would have also been good. Cultist. Sure, like, this is what I was fearful of, right? Like, this play just doesn't do as well as I want it to. Especially if they, like, Unforgiving Cult me, right? If I do Quietus, they can't Unforgiving Cult. Yeah, so I'll do Quietus. It forces them not to be able to Unforgiving Cult, and then they literally can't kill Katarina. Because they don't have enough for Buru Cult. They don't have enough for Furies Wielder anymore. Obviously don't have enough for second Katarina, but, like, you know, I think this is perfectly fine for me. So if they want to freeze... I mean, freeze doesn't kill Katarina, right? Because this goes to 4, this goes to 5. They get to kill both of these, I get to keep Katarina. That's probably good for them, actually. So I think this Spidz is still very, very good for me. I miss Gwen. I miss her voice line so much. It's been so long since I've played Gwen. I've missed just, like, yelling he missed constantly. Yeah, so we'll attack like this. They do Harsh Winds, I keep Katarina or Redeemed Prodigy. Yeah, and I get to, like, glimpse my Gwen. Right? Hold on. 4, 8. Oh, well, this freezes. Right? Okay, they kill Gwen here. We could actually keep Gwen alive. That's probably worth it, actually. Using Fervor to keep Gwen alive, I think, is actually very good for me. So I think I shall. I just, like, do this. I know I've got second Gwen, but it's cheaper just to replay Katarina, right? Yeah, I like this a lot, actually. And we got the freeze out of them. If they play Aatrox, they don't have any mana for anything. We play Katarina and we just start smacking, like, really hard. Actually, if they play Aatrox, maybe I'm just playing Can't Block Reckoner opening. Forcing them to do Furious Wielder on their turn. On their turn after. That's close, if they play Aatrox. Nah, if they play Aatrox, I think we're just doing Crimson Pigeon Katarina. Like, what? Literally, what are they gonna do? Like, I've got 3 Hollowed at this point. They're just, like, doomed, right? Well, I can't kill Aatrox. I don't know. Like, they are healing 6. Aatrox does play Star Shaping. Maybe it was Reckoner, but they're still healing 4 if I Reckoner, right? If I had Flock here, they would just be doomed. Okay. Play Pigeon. It's, I think it's Prodigy. Might be Pigeon first, actually. Shadow Fiend. Okay, never mind. They can't afford Momentous Choice. So, I think it's... If I do this, what happens is they get a free block on Redeemed Prodigy. But I think I'm okay with it. I think this is correct. But I don't have a source on that. This is just like the vibes. I mean, if they block anything that isn't Pigeon, I'm glimpsing. And if they block Pigeon, I'm Blades Edging. Which makes me think this is correct. Because if I put more stats on the Prodigy, they would be blocking enough. Yeah, this is correct. It forces them to block in awkward ways. I've got Blades Edge, friend. I think this is lethal. And I think the Pigeon first was correct, because if I put the Prodigy first, it becomes 5 strength. They block that with Aatrox, I can't kill him. I would glimpse in response, but no, okay. Hold on. Can I just test something quickly? This is also lethal, right? Yeah, okay. They haven't played Ambitious Cultist. Good! Round 1 Spidz. Good job, Spidz. I think the Battle Fury game shows that Battle Fury may not be pegged. But I think I played the Red Gwen fine, and I really like Red Gwen. Red Gwen is probably like top 3 favorite competitive decks of all time. Like Sivarakshan, Red Gwen, and... Look, I'm boring. I might say Scouts. Or if you want to consider Jax Vayne competitive, it's probably Jax Vayne, but like, yeah. Alright. I will end my recording. And yeah, goodbye. Alright, the final game I think is sort of interesting, but I'm not happy with some of the words that I say in the audio. I think this mulligan's really good. I think Phantom Butler and Redeemed Prodigy are great ways of pressuring the opponent, and Gwen is something they really struggle to deal with. They need to freeze or do Momentous Choice because they don't run the Challenger keyword. Not Momentous Choice, a Furious Builder. They just can't kill Gwen, right? So Gwen is really good in this matchup. And I think we're able to pressure them quite a bit. I think all of our plays are fine up until this point. I say weird things like I can open attack with this guy on 2 when clearly I need to spend 2 mana and develop him. But that's all fine. I think the Vile Feast is okay. I think what I said about the Spiderling was correct. It's not correct to attack with Spiderling if they like develop a unit. But it is correct to attack with Spiderling since they developed the 3/5. Them not having Momentous Choice was super unfortunate for them because they would have been able to do interesting stuff with the Gwen. I really liked this Quietus. I think this Quietus was insane. I know it was a top deck, so everyone, you'll see it and be like, Spidz, if you didn't have the Quietus, blah, 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 blah. But I think fundamentally it's wrong for them to have wrong for them to have played a Kayn with no mana banked. I think they just I think that's like a fundamental wrong. You can't do that against a Quietus deck. That's just like not possible. I do the Quietus, I do the Glimpse to draw stuff, get another Quietus. Now, not Quietusing now is something I'm undecided on. So my thinking was that I might want to Quietus something later, like another Kayn or an Aatrox weapon or a Darken Harp or something like that. And there was a decent chance I was just going to let the 2/2 happen. It's worse into Darkenharp plus Furious Wielder because I try and get rid of the Darkenharp and then the Furious Wielder goes up and it kills my thing. But what I really liked was that it seemed like no matter what they did, Katarina was going to fork them because I get to ping this off. They either have to not play a unit or heal this up, and then they also have to like worry about not having enough mana for their spells because their spells are expensive. Like a 3 mana, their spells are 4 mana and 5 mana. They don't have spells that aren't 4 mana and 5 mana when they're trying to deal like board-based interaction. So I really liked the Katarina here to try and put them in that awkward position. But Quietus was a little weird. I think there was a line where you Quietus early, and I think like whatever fake logic I'm using to like buff up why Quietus is fine not to play is just like absurd. I think I just should have played Quietus there. I don't think there was really much reason not to play Quietus here. It allows us just to pressure so much more, so much more quickly as well. But we do this, then we do this. They think for a while. We get our attack in, and they do that. And I really like this fervor. I think this fervor is absolutely beautiful. I think there's an argument that I should have played Gwen's Thread the Needle instead. I think there's probably a higher chance that I want to use Fervor for the Nexus than there is a higher chance that Thread the Needle would need to become second Gwen. Because for Thread the Needle to become second Gwen, they need to play Kayn. And like, if they're playing Kayn, I don't know, maybe do I still win? If they play Kayn, do I still win? Possibly not, right? Like, I do the Thread the Needle, I play Katarina again, they play Kayn, I play Katarina again, they kill Gwen. I cry a little, I open, I'm not pushing all that much damage, all things considered. Alright, then I think Fervor's correct, just to get another Gwen on the field. Alright, fair call. And like, I think like in general Fervor's correct. I just wanted to see if like Thread the Needle was actually better here. But I really like this Fervor, killing this to ping this up to make it so that the Katarina does do the whole Foya thing. I want to give like a shout out to this Tutu, by the way. Like, I think I summon 3 of these, like 3 Ghastly Bands from this Tutu, which is just insane. And this final attack is just me being stupid, right? I should have realized, like, way early on that I'm probably, like, to turn this into, like, a fundamental way of how to think about your attacks with the Red Gwen. Like, if they're at low amounts of HP and you've got something like 3 Hollowed, they are probably forced to block your quick attack units, right? Like, they're forced to block your high damage dealing units. They can't take 6 damage from one of these units, right? They just can't do it. So, like, the logic I was trying to go for where I'm trying to bait them into blocking Pigeon, and that's why I don't want to put the numbers on the Prodigy was wrong. Now, it's also wrong for other reasons, for the fact that it was guaranteed lethal with the Glimpse Beyond and the Blade's Edge. I don't think I thought about this enough. I don't think it mattered for me to do these thoughts. I mean, obviously not. Like, I'm in such an amazingly commanding position where I'm almost certain I get to kill Aatrox here, that it didn't seem integral to me to do that sort of math on the fly. It didn't just seem important, but I think, like, you can look at this hand and work out the math, especially with the oracles. You can put things on the stack and realize that the hollowed procs and the doubling up on the hollowed procs just means that they can't block anything if they're not blocking this stuff, right? Especially since we're already pushing in 8 damage with the non-buffed units alone, right? Or it'd actually be 9 damage if we buffed this properly and then did this. So, like, I don't know. I think we played this fine. I think it shows good what I like about Red Gwen. It does all this cool stuff with the hollowed keyword and lets you play for really interesting lines, especially with that fervor that I really, really like to see. And I'm just really glad that I got to play this game. This is, I loved this set. I think this set was lots of fun, especially the last 2 games. The first game didn't feel too fun. I'm not just saying that it's like a sore loser. I think, like, I just didn't have any play that I could do. While for the other 2 games, I did have play. But I also won those, and I'm sure that Z 1005 didn't feel like they had any play. So, like, when I did my stuff, I felt like I was being powerful and interesting, and I did all the stuff that I wanted to do, and they weren't able to do that. I think that's an issue that a lot of people are having with this meta, that only one side of the field seems to be able to do the thing that they want to do, and whoever gets to have that feeling wins, and without that feeling you cannot win, and that's what happens with Echo Jinx, Green Katarina, Plunder, Lulu Jinx, Aatrox Kayn. I feel like that's the way a lot of people are feeling about this, unlike how I think most people view most metas, where both players get to do what they want, and it's who gets to trick the other person the most gets to win the video game. I think that's like a lot of people's problem with this meta. But I don't know. I'm speaking out of my ass. I'm not particularly like a good like analysis on the world of LOR. But I think we played this really well. I don't know if there are any misplays. There was talking misplays, and there was like, I think we can buff Redeemed Prodigy here, but I already have guaranteed lethal with this if I just thought ahead with the Glimpse Beyond and the Blade's Edge. So it's really Wonaries. I think everything was really good. I liked playing Phantom Butler. I think this was just like a great clean game that shows how to play Red Gwen, right? The only misplay may have been that Quietus that I was trying to be way too cute with. But yeah, that's this first game. Thanks for watching. I'll probably still upload every single game, even though I know some aren't as interesting. I think like the most interesting games are probably the last two sets with Rusticles and Lazy Googa. So it sucks that they're at the end when no one's going to care anymore, but whatever. This is Spidz YouTube channel. Like, who cares? No one cares. No one cares about the Spidz YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching this behemoth of a video. I've been up since 3 a.m. and it's currently midnight. I've been doing a lot of recording. I've been speaking for like 14 hours today. My voice is out of it, and like, I cannot wait to sleep. But I've got to export this video and then upload 2 videos. It's just a nightmare, man. But I have fun. At the end of the day, I'm enjoying myself. So, you know, no one can blame me for that. Thank you all for watching, and I shall see you tomorrow where we fight someone else. Goodbye.